Whoops.
Hello, everyone. We're going to give a few minutes for others to join the room.
What's up, Michaela?
What's up? I wanted to say something, but didn't want to interrupt.
How you been?
I've been okay. A little stressed out with school, but nothing new.
In that part.
Yeah.
That's cool.
What about you? What you've been up to?
Just stressed out with school.
Get off me.
I'm telling you, I'm in the same boat. I'm in the same boat.
Are you?
Yeah, school's been kind of tough like this last quarter, and then we got classes at the end of the month. So bunch of reading.
Okay, what are you studying?
Policy and governance.
Interesting.
Yeah. What about you?
I'm still in nursing.
Okay. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
stuff too. Shoot, you take chemistry, then biologies. Oh,
Yeah,
them classes crazy.
that's my sciences.
Them classes crazy. That's cool. I'm glad you're on here.
Okay, so we are right at 7 o'clock. I think we can get started. And I'm just tech. I'm not facilitating. So y'all got it. Go ahead.
Well, I'll kind of take the damn. Where everybody go? How everybody camera just cut off? I need to see somebody's eyes. There we go. So anyways, we wanted to. I'm Evan Cook with the Federal Black Collective, and we wanted to discuss today, Just Mercy. How many people in here have seen the movie? One of those. Michaela, have you seen the movie?
Yes, I have.
Chris, I know they're muted, and Krisha, we got two more people in the waiting room.
Yeah, this is Krisha. I haven't seen the movie, but I'm supposed to start facilitating it, or at least facilitate it with the group and watch it together tomorrow. So I kind of want to just kind of listen and get some viewpoints.
Okay, well this will definitely give you the insider scoop and prepare you for tomorrow. There are some questions that I wrote out that because the plan was to show the movie, but we kind of had some issues there, so we had to make some adjustments. But we want to discuss in which ways Just Mercy kind of plays out. How do we see this happening today within our system? And what can we do what can we take from this movie to help move our fight forward? And then also, what can we learn from this movie that maybe could have been done differently? And then also Alabama and Washington in 1987. It's kind of funny because Washington more racist than people really give it credit for. But those climates are totally different. 1987 Alabama, and obviously 2020 Washington State is two different climates, especially racially, but the same white supremacy, same injustice system. But keep that in mind, though, that we are in different times. So there is one scene I'd like to, kind of how I'm going to kind of do this, and other facilitators also feel free to jump in there and bring up any points that you would do. But one scene that we're going to end up watching is a death penalty scene, and we're going to be talking about the death penalty. So honestly, I really want to just kind of kick it off with that, because it's one of the most it's one of the biggest scenes in the beginning of the movie. So if you haven't seen the movie, this is going to be the death penalty scene, and it is hard to watch, so I'm just kind of bracing you guys now. So Here we go. Terrible moment, I know. So if y'all need a moment, please feel free to take a moment.
Tim, last time you were here, you had brought up Just Mercy briefly, and you said that this was one of the few working experiences that you had that changed your life. It changed your outlook on life. It changed your politics in a way that you were just sort of unaware of exactly.
I don't know if y'all can hear that, but I did not mean to play that. Could y'all hear that?
Yeah, we can hear it.
Yep.
I was over here looking at
I was
y'all.
trying to mute a participant.
Hey, I was looking at y'all like, who talking? I like Tim. Oh man. But just thoughts and feedback from that. I'll just open the floor.
Okay, I'll start off. Well, first of all, it's really heinous, obviously. I think it's even worse that the fact that his friends could hear them too. Like, you can hear it through the air vents. But every time I watch that scene, or while I was watching it as well, the fact at the end of the movie, I don't know if you can pull that up really quick, but it was saying how 1 in 6, or I'm paraphrasing, so don't quote me, but 1 in 6 are wrongfully convicted and put on death row. And when we think about who's being put on death row, or who's just like in our system, period, is Black and brown people. And so the amount of air, thank you, Angel, 1 in 9. But still, like, what I'm getting at is the amount of air is just ridiculous, you know. And when we think about capital punishment, I mean, this is up for debate, but is it a means of killing off our people? That's all I got. Thanks.
I mean, that's a great question that you posed at the end. I mean, that's kind of what I thought about. Anybody open to hitting that up? Is capital punishment just another means to killing off Black and brown people?
Well, I think it's more than that. I mean, I just read an article about how down in Alabama, the prisoners are, they go out on work release. Mm-hmm. They're working in the governor's house as servants. And they showed the house, and it's an old plantation. And, it's like, that's a better job than working on the lawn or the outdoor. And basically, you're looking at the reality of slavery is still existing. You got the house slaves, and it's coming from the prison system in Alabama. So you take that on a bigger scale, and it's still happening. So yes, it just hurts me. I used to work at Echo Glen for almost 2 years. I don't know if you're familiar with it, Echo Glen. Okay, Angel knows it. And when you go in there, you realize that, yeah, it's all Black, brown, and Native American kids who either didn't have a lot of parenting, didn't have a lot of family coming from. So they're being arrested and incarcerated because there was no one at home and social services didn't help. And they were either truant at school or they're, and I've talked to these kids. I was going, okay, you needed food and you went to the AM/PM, but did you have to take the gun? I mean, those are the conversations you have because you cannot fault these kids for going through what they're going through. And they're getting, these sentences that are absurd and unheard of. And so if you get an opportunity, go out there for a visit and you will see. And it appalled me. And I've been a teacher for a while and I keep not getting picked up by a district because I keep screaming about this stuff. And I've finally been reviewing, why do I keep getting kicked out of school districts? Why don't they? It's because I go, how come all the Black and brown kids are in school suspension? And when I write up this white kid, they don't go. And they're like, oh, she's causing trouble. And so it's a secretive way why I keep getting kicked out. And I'm not saying that I'm taking anything from you guys, please no, but I see this in the school system throughout. And yeah, it's so prevalent, and it's this, you know, school to pipeline.
Mhm.
It's happening. It's real.
Yeah. And Mary, when you were speaking about the prison in Alabama, there's one prison in particular that I think all of us should know about. It's not in Alabama, it's actually in Louisiana. It is called Angola State Prison. Angola State Prison went from being a plantation to being a prison. There was no in between time. It was not owned by anyone else. To this day, it is a prison that is self-sustained. They grow all their food, they do all their things. And once you go to Angola, it's the lifers prison, so that's where you are. I think there's a big conversation right now around policing and the origin of policing, and the origin of policing is slave patrols, and just tying that back into the film we just saw, the piece of the film that we just saw. And Michaela, the point that you were making about, you know, that they could hear what was going on in the execution chamber, right? I think there's a lot of parallels there with, we see people dying on camera, right? We hear them saying that they can't breathe. And, you know, though we're not on death row, sometimes it can feel, as a Black American, well, you know, I'm not sure. I don't have control over living to old age and dying of natural causes. I don't have control over that. And so, yeah, that's what it brought up for me. I think that there is a hand raising option. So if anybody, if in the future, if you want to just use the reaction and wave your hand, I'm an admin and I can handle that.
Well,
I said that, and then I don't know how to unmute Michaela. Michaela raised her hand. Go ahead, Michaela.
It's okay. Just kind of going off of what you were saying, like the fact that they could hear them in the vents too. And it got me thinking about this book that I read. Hold on. It's called The Miseducation of the Negro by Carter G. Woodson. And really good book, highly recommend it. But there's this part in the book where it talks about, when you control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. You do not have to tell him to stand here or go yonder. He'll find his proper place and will stay in it. You do not need to send him to the back door. He'll go without being told. In fact, if there's no back door, he'll cut one from his special benefits. His education makes it necessary. But this is talking about education, but the fact that that they could hear it. And so it was almost to me like a conditioning. This is what you'll get if you don't stay in line, you know? So find your place. And that's kind of just like the quote that it brought it back to me, which is, it's sad, but in a way it almost felt like conditioning too, because later on in the movie with the man with the disability, how they were trying to threaten him by putting him closer to the execution chamber. And so that was just another point that I wanted to make.
And just housekeeping, I did figure out how to lower the hand and unmute you, so we can use that feature.
Kayla, shout out. I'm proud of you, man. Go ahead and everybody be quoting Carter G. Miseducation of the Negro. That's what's up. That's what's up. So just going back kind of to the capital punishment discussion, like I said earlier, I want to relate this to Washington State. Are y'all aware of the capital punishment law in Washington State, and if it's still around or not? I see some heads. No, we're not aware. So capital punishment in the state of Washington was abolished in 2018 when the state Supreme Court ruled it unconstitutional. So we haven't been a capital punishment state for the last 2 years. The last person to be executed was on September 10th of 2010. That was the last person to be executed by the death penalty in Washington State before it was abolished 8 years later. So just this state, I mean, clearly in the last decade, it hasn't been a big capital punishment state. However, it was. So that's just something to keep in mind. I want to go to a question. If anybody has a question, let me look at the chat. Bam. All right. So just I'm gonna open up a general question. If for those who have seen the movie, in what ways is Just Mercy relevant to 2020 and the criminal justice system here in Washington State?
So I think it was so relevant to what's happening now, especially the scene where he goes to the home and interviews everybody and says, you guys were all with him at the barbecue. You were all his alibi. And there were like 20 people. And they say, yeah, but it didn't matter. And it's just perpetuates on and on what, you know, and it's more, I was reading something today, it's more of a systemic white supremacist thing, but we're dealing with policing too, in that we're not listening. We're not listening to people's voices, to Black people, to brown people's voices. We're not giving, you know, the court system is just, they're just ignoring it. I just started watching the Who Killed Malcolm X on Netflix. And again, no interviewing anybody, no talking to anybody. Anyone who was Black and brown was discredited. And I think that's part of it. We don't want someone to actually tell us who did it, because it could be, it's going to go along against our narrative. And I think that's what's happening from the court system all the way down to the policing, is there's a narrative that they expect. They see Black and brown people and they go criminal, thug, you know, all those expressions. Right. And so when you interview someone that contradicts that narrative, of course, they have not been educated. They don't have master's degrees, bachelor's degrees in socioeconomic, and they don't know how to deal with, this is contradicting my narrative. How do I deal with that? And that's why the reshaping policing is so important.
Absolutely. And with Love, Mary, that's the space where our white accomplices is the word that I like to use. That's y'all's role, right? Because if they're not listening to us and Mary is in the room, then you got to make them listen to you, right? Or whoever else is in the room that has that privilege that opens their ears, and kind of be our interpreter, for lack of a better analogy there. So, yeah. And for those that haven't said anything, we want to just give you space to, oh, Natalie has her hand up. I'm sorry that I did not, that I didn't get to you before. Let me get to you.
Oh, no, sorry. I didn't mean to raise my hand. I was just trying to use, I thought that was an applause button, just agreeing as someone who attempts to be a white accomplice.
Okay. Thank you for that. Yes.
Thank you.
And we want to just offer space if you haven't spoken yet and would like to. Okay. Evan, you want to play us our next clip?
Yeah, but before that, I kind of want to go back to Mary's comments around one, the Who Killed Malcolm X. Crazy, and I got crazy stories about that whole documentary, and just how I know people kind of who might be connected to it. So I was like, man, when you brought it up, but it makes me think about COINTELPRO and J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI director, or the former FBI director, and how one of the things that he said, or he had these rules, you know, prevent the rise of a Black Messiah, you know, and then but discrediting groups. You know what I'm saying? Discrediting people who were trying to push that message, and then also attacking the youth. You know what I'm saying? The youth's education. And I've just paraphrased all of that. But what to Mary's comment with the discreditation of jurors and things like that, that's been a tactic of lawyers and the justice system for, a minute now. And we saw it again here in this movie. So with all that being said, I'm gonna play the next scene, and I want to bring up, anyways, I'm gonna just go ahead and drop that for y'all. Here we go. Fast before I show the rest of it, but I kind of wanted to bring up, so there was another, I couldn't find it. I wanted to play the other court scene. There's another courtroom scene where he presents all the evidence, because notice in that one, he didn't present no evidence. He just went straight to the judge and was like, you know what? You know what I'm saying? And just gave her that real. You know what I'm saying? But there was another court scene where he presented, all the evidence, had the witness who recanted his statement and everything. And it's locked and it's closed. And they were like, yeah, nah, and so I use that to kind of illustrate an example of like kind of white supremacy and that systematic racism. But then I also want to raise just a question as well, for those who have seen the movies, in what other ways do we see systematic racism displayed throughout the movie? Do we know what systematic racism is?
And don't be shy, y'all. We're family. This is a safe space.
Okay, so I'm the old lady here. I've seen it all my life and it's aggravated me. There was when the lawyer goes to the other guy's house and he's like, don't ever come to my front door. I can go on. When he goes all the way down to the Capitol and goes to the district attorneys and he's like, hey boy, what are you doing here? He goes, oh, I'm a lawyer and I've come to see. I saw the movie alone in a movie theater and I just wanted to be screaming at the top of my lungs. One, why wasn't the theater full? And why weren't more people talking about this film? And again, like I said, I see it in the schools all the time and it just irritates me.
Yes. Thank you, Mary.
Anybody else? Mr. Bell, I thought I saw your hand up.
Oh, that was a hand in frustration. I was trying to get my audio right.
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't hear the question, but
the question was, in what ways do we see systematic racism displayed throughout the movie? Yeah.
The whole movie is about the systematic racism. So the denial for appeals, the good old boy club attitude throughout the whole process. The wall that he hits because it's just like the audacity of this outside N-word to come in here and try to change something that we have established. And so as Mary said, when she called him a boy, he didn't continue his sentence. He said boy, because he knew what that meant. There was already established basically quorum in that environment, and he wasn't a part of it. And so he was just running headfirst into it every step of the way.
Thank you.
I like what Mr. Bell said about how you're going to come in here and change the things that we set in place. And yeah, like that pride, ego does play a big part in that, in the movie. Stagnation was a huge one. Like in the clip, he mentioned easy solutions. And basically at the end of the day, like they talked about in the film, we couldn't find somebody for like a year, and so they kind of just picked the first Black man that they saw and wiped their hands of it, you know. I think the part that shook me the most when I seen systemic racism in the movie was when he first came into the jail, and he was going to interview the people. And he first came in and he was telling the guard how he has 6 people lined up in the day. So he was on the chart, right? And they took him aside and made him do a strip search. Mm-hmm. And the entire time I kept putting myself in his place. Like, I felt humiliated, you know, it was so degrading on so many levels. Like, you're going to have me stripped down in front of you against the law, you know, it's not right. But it kind of just opened my eyes, like, wow, things like this actually do happen. Like, I mean, when I say that, I mean, I understand it happens, but nowadays, everything's kind of like more under the surface. Like, at least in the past, we could see racism up front. You know, they call you the N-word to your face. They do this and that. But now it's like behind systems. And so trying to educate people about the systems in place, it's a little less apparent. Like, you got your girl over here talking about, I voted for Barack Obama, I'm not racist. And so trying to like you know what I'm talking about, Evan? So trying to get her out of that mindset and point out these systems in place is a little harder than being like, yeah, look, he just lynched the guy over there, you know?
Yes. And I made a note there. That was basically a note from my own head. So sorry if it doesn't make sense. But when we're talking about systematic racism, something that really stuck out to me in the film was when Michael B. Jordan's character, I can't remember what happened right before, but he stormed into the office, right? And he was like, what's going on? You know, and they were like, oh, I know you like to think that we're just racist people down here trying to get this guy, like telling on themselves, like they said exactly what they're doing. But the way that they said it was like, how dare you accuse us of this thing that we're actually doing, right? And so that's systemic racism. Like, oh, what do you mean? We're not systemic racist. Like, Black people just commit more crime. But we know that statistically that's not true, right? We know statistically that Black people do not use more drugs than any other race. If it's drug use is the same across all races, right? So why are we more in prison? And Mary, you mentioned earlier, the education system and the racism that is there. There's also the healthcare system. There's racism in the healthcare system. There's race. I mean, any system that you look at in America, you can point to some negative effect that has on historically oppressed communities. And we haven't even, yes, I just read Angie's comment. Angie's comment was, and how the Black man they decided to pin the murder on was the one who dared step out with a white lady and step out, you know, he was unfaithful to his wife, right? With a white woman in the community. And that is, no. Thank you, Angie. That's an important point, right? And actually, Angie, would you like to speak to us about that point? It shouldn't just be, you know, the same voices over and over again. We're all in this together.
Get you some, man.
Just that I've only actually seen half the movie. I thought, for some reason, we were watching it tonight also. So I've seen half of it, and it just hits every point that we know it was going to hit, right? Like, you can't rent a building, you can't rent an office space. How dare you try to help people who've already been accused by the law, because the law is the only thing that matters. And once you're accused and found guilty, obviously the law has the last say on if you're wrong or not. And it's infallible. Like, that right there is what is probably the sickest, not the sickest, I don't even know what I'm trying to say. Just the fact that so many of us believe that the law is infallible, and if the law finds you guilty, that's it, you're guilty. And then, of course, they decide to pin the crime after a year on the Black guy that decided to have an affair with a white lady. Like, excuse me. could you be any less original? That was
Right.
all.
When I
And
go ahead, Angel.
no, this might be a bit controversial, but these are my personal opinions and do not represent the opinions of any organization that I may be affiliated with. Let me put that. But I mean, even the ideas of laws are a bit problematic, right? Because what if the indigenous people had laws when the Europeans came here? You know what I mean? Who gets to decide what the laws are? That's its own conversation, right? At one point it was landowning white men, and then it was, and then slowly and surely, and now undocumented people who hold up our economy don't have the right to vote, and that's not okay either. So yeah, there's the tentacles of racism are far reaching. So go ahead, Evan, sorry.
I forgot what I was about to say actually. So
it looks
my
like
bad.
Tiffany was going to talk. We haven't heard from you yet. Go ahead.
She was. Hi. The whole thing just really gets me. There's just so much in there, but the thing that really hit me at the end was the systemic racism, just in the fact that sheriff remained sheriff until last year when he retired, and that the woman was killed by someone who they know to be white, and it's never been investigated. And the whole movie shook me, but it was truly the end of it that, I don't know. I just did that thing that we do so often in Black films where we intersperse the good parts in the credits at the end. And so I was at the end and just really shaking from the whole thing. And I knew, don't turn this off, because there's going to be something in these credits. And then just when I thought it was all done, and right now I'm blanking on it, the very last piece that was interspersed in the credits. And I'm not sure if that was the woman's situation not being investigated, but the very last piece of the facts really hit me then. And I'm not remembering it now. It was a few days ago, but yeah. My initial thoughts.
Yes.
Something else.
No. That I don't remember that fact. And unfortunately, it doesn't surprise me. And I'm also wondering how many other sheriffs have his same track record of the behaviors that he showed in this movie that haven't retired yet.
Mm-hmm.
Sheriffs, and even I would want to hear when that district attorney too, because I want to go back and I'm gonna play another scene really fast. And it was the scene when he first approached the district attorney about this case, because this is to the good old boys comment Mr. Belt made, and then just playing into the whole systematic racism piece. So I'm gonna share this clip. Right here. Phrase I kept hearing throughout the goddamn movie. You ought to check out the Mockingbird Museum. Like, oh my gosh. Anyways, just that scene in its entirety just displays so much of what we've already discussed. But I want to hear y'all feedback on it. What do y'all keep seeing echoing through that?
Unmitigated gall. Just the, there's no other way to put it, the audacity, right? Like, we control this. There's nothing you can do about it. And we're wrong. I mean, we're right. And even if you're right, we're still right. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because unfortunately, I'm white and I say so. Right? And not only do I have the money to make sure that this could go away, I have the law enforcement on my side to make sure that you're intimidated. I have the whole economic system. I have a whole bunch of things, right, that works against you. And all you really have is your will and your determination to see this thing through. Now it's a matter of, can you prove it can you make this big enough such that it's out of our hands? And unfortunately they did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, he said something key that stuck out to me. He said, my job is to protect the integrity of this conviction. He wasn't talking about finding the truth or actually solving the murder. He's talking about protecting the integrity of the conviction. And like, to me, that statement is bigger than the case. To me, that's white supremacy as a whole. That's why we don't see justice. That's why we don't see certain things happen, is because their job is to protect the integrity of white supremacy. It's not to ensure that everybody receives equal treatment or equal their fair shake. It's to make sure that white power is dominant throughout the world. So yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah,
step
we
back.
gave y'all a museum, so what are you complaining about? You got that one museum, so what else do you want? Just go away.
I'm gonna just open it up for more comments before I ask the next question.
There was a part in the film that stuck out to me. It's when he states, it's to achieve justice for my client. And I kept dwelling on that word justice. Like, what does it mean? What does it mean to have justice? Because in the end of the film, we could say he achieved some form of justice for his client by getting him out of death row, like getting the charges dropped. But the part that doesn't sit right with me is, and we were kind of talking about it in the comment section or the chat box, is after he got out, I feel like everyone else failed him. It's like we needed like a collective group to come together and achieve justice, because after he got out, it's like, what happened to the officer? You know, why isn't, I feel like we got one form of justice, but failed in another form of justice in terms of like prosecuting the officer, because in a way, like, I see that as premeditated murder. He knew he did not commit the crime, and yet he was going to let him be executed for a crime that he was committing. Isn't that murder? You know, like killing off an innocent man that you know did not do the crime. And I feel like everyone else is an accomplice to murder. And that may be a bit extreme, but in a way, like, it follows the rules of the law, how we see murder, how we see accomplices of murder. And yet that's not talked about, that's not upheld. So when we talk about justice for all, it's kind of ironic. And so I guess that's a question for everyone else too. I just want to hear, like, what do you think justice means? Like, what does it mean to have justice? And for our white supporters, white allies, I'm not sure how you say that, but what are some ways that like they can partake in helping with justice, you know, for a little like action piece thrown in there?
Can I offer a suggestion? I think in general, it can be very overwhelming because the tentacles of racism are everywhere, right? And I'd like to offer, and absolutely you can respond with a different answer, absolutely. But I always encourage people, especially accomplices, to work where they are. So if you're in a job, you figure out where the racism is in your job because it's there and you fix it wherever you are, whatever is going on there. If you're in the healthcare system, fix it. If you're in the nonprofit sector, fix it. If you're in the, you know what I mean? And yeah, that's just my opinion. I definitely welcome others as well.
I like that.
So one of the things I'm doing right now is I started reading, and it's on my Kindle, so I can never look at the author, the title, but it's a series of essays called Anti-Racism in the Classroom, How Do We, and it's from 2006. Her name is Micah Pollock, and she edited all these pieces, and each essay comes with discussion questions, and she suggests that schools use this and come together in your, whether you're in teams or groups or whatever, and talk about it. So I've started reading it, and what I want to do is reach out to my other teacher friends, because I was a substitute. I'm still looking for work. No one wants to hire this 60-year-old lady because I'm too expensive, and ageism and everything. But then reach out to all my friends that are teachers and do this. Have a Zoom conversation about the book as we're reading it. So when we go back to our schools, we've all had this discussion. But it's not just my school, it's all the schools, and we can go out there and go, hey, by the way, this summer I read this book. Now I'd like to teach this through the rest of the school. Can we talk about this? Can we read this as a school, as a team, as a, whatever. And so that's one of the things I'm trying to do right now to get rid of it. I was part of a program when I was in the Renton School District that it's called SEED, SEED. And again, it's teaching this. And we sat down as teachers once a month and got together and talked about what's happening in our classrooms. What can we do? What are we saying? How do we feel? What are we bringing to the table? And talked about our own biases that we're bringing in the classroom and how do we address it. And it was wonderful, but it was not required. It was optional. And there were about 6 of us, who got together once a month. And I think that kind of learning needs to be constant. It needs to be required. And yes, it's going to make people feel uncomfortable, but we're not going to stop this from happening in the classrooms and the schools until we all do it together. You can't have the one teacher. I mean, that's what keeps happening. They're like, well, why is she doing that? Well, because I'm trying to be aware. I don't want to be the sore thumb. Everyone should be teaching that way. And that's what I'm trying to do.
I can add to that. I am also trying to lean in, and the phrase that comes to mind is racism. See it at work. My job is a bit of an intersection between the education system and the healthcare system. So we see quite a bit of entangled white supremacy in those structures, and just in kind of passing down regulations and not questioning them. So I would say, I think one of the ways that I've attempted to seek justice for the children we serve is trying to that what we call this intent, which is the true impact on communities, and recognizing whatever you thought your intent was doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, the impact matters. And recognizing there may be other intentions. We've all been socialized towards racism. So even if we think there was one intention, that's all tangled up in our own stuff. So taking that step back and kind of asking questions, how is this really working for our communities?
I'll open it up for further comments and feedback. Before I get toward, there's just 2 more things that I have kind of on my agenda. Another question and then another clip and question. So what y'all want first, the question or the clip and question? All right,
I think I want to insert, sorry. I think I want to insert because there was a conversation about education happening, and I work in the field of education, and a coworker just challenged us this week with the idea that the educational systems push our kids out. And so how do we change it from within or tear it down? The same as the kind of work we're thinking about with the police. We know that our Black and brown kids get sent to the juvenile justice system and placed in special schools and all kinds of systems. And I personally work in special ed, and I can tell you what categories the Black and brown kids are qualified for in special ed. and what categories white kids are qualified for. And then what that means for them being pushed out of traditional schooling, and the further they get away from the, whatever you want to call the regular classroom, the less academic education they get, and the less academic education that we get, the more pushed out we are all the way through our lives. And so I don't know what that means for accomplices here in education. I will just say I'm blowing it up in my own mind right now, because as a special educator, I'm contributing to the system even when I'm fighting against it just by working inside of it.
Yes, I was reminded while you were speaking that we are streaming on YouTube. So I said that this is a safe space, but that is something that we need to be aware of.
So great. Maybe I should say where I'm from.
Comfortable.
So say where I'm from. No, it's all right. I do this work at the university level, so they find me. They find me. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
I think a big part of justice too is listening. So listening to the victim, what does the victim want to see in reparations? Listening to but not just listening to the victim, but listening to the perpetrator. What does the perpetrator, where was the perpetrator coming from? So the gentleman who was murdered on death row because he had a traumatic experience in war and came back, and there was no service to help him through that. That's part of justice too. I've been reading and just basically mainlining Mariam Kaba's work in the last couple of weeks, and it's something I've been thinking about a lot, of like, justice isn't locking people up in jail for the rest of their lives, and justice isn't enforcing nuisance laws that are only on the books to be able to enforce them disproportionately against Black and Brown and Indigenous communities. That's not justice. So what we're doing isn't justice, in the system in place isn't justice, either in education or prison or police or healthcare or jobs or financial. Like, there's no justice in any of the systems. That's what systemic racism is. And a huge part of that, Angel said that in her chat too, is just fucking listening. We aren't listening, we've never listened. And that's what we need to be doing.
Yeah, that brought one thing up for me. When we are dropping resources in our chat, can we also like write it down in the chat so we can revisit those? So you just said Miriam something that I wasn't familiar with. So if we could just source that.
I'm gonna misspell her name, sorry.
That's fine.
Her first name is
we got Google.
Miriam.
As long as you get
I know the last name is right. I can't remember
idea.
if she's AME or EME, but she talks about abolishing prisons and the entire justice system as it stands and what that could look like. And it's Angela Davis.
Well, y'all kind of led me into my next question, speaking about education, justice, and all of these things, because we know, like, to the special ed point that Tiffany was making, that a lot of our Black and Brown kids from low income communities are the ones who get funneled into that, and these end up becoming the ones who are the first recommendations into the school to prison pipeline. So it was said in the movie, the opposite of poverty is not wealth. The opposite of poverty is justice. What does that statement mean to y'all? What do y'all, just carrying this justice conversation on, but now including kind of that framework into there. The opposite of poverty is justice.
And I'm going to offer, there's still some that we haven't heard of. And if you're not comfortable, that's totally fine. But I do want to leave room and practice step up, step back. So if I tend to step up, so I'm going to step back for the rest of the call. And for those of us who step back, to kind of step up and have some courage and join the conversation if you have something for us. Okay.
Howdy. So I guess it links back to the previous question you had about how allies can help. My response to that, when you said that, was that I was just noticing that practically like all the corporate websites I log into or have dealings with are now all proudly extolling on their banners of their websites, we support Black Lives Matter. Like I logged into Chase Bank website today, and there's a big banner on there saying that they support, Black Lives Matter. They're against police brutality. You go to any other corporate website, at least today, I did that, and they all seem to be talking about this. And I was thinking, wouldn't it be great to actually make them back up their fancy language here? But then I realized, I was thinking, yeah, if there was some way to make Chase Bank actually give money, billions of dollars to Black Lives Matter, wouldn't that be awesome? And then I realized, actually, no, I don't think I do want that, because that's like saying, like, let's have Bill Gates solve the coronavirus crisis by having him give billions of dollars, because we should be relying on billionaires to save our country. It's like what Angel said in the chat. We don't want heroes to come in and save us. We want the wealth to be distributed more equitably in the first place. So I forgot what Evan, I forgot what your most recent question was, but I was going to tie it into that as well. It was just a quote, Paul. I don't want to stop you. Keep going, because you're saying some good stuff. I said the opposite of poverty is not wealth. The opposite of poverty is justice, and just trying to get some dialogue on what that statement means to people. Well, there you go. So the opposite of me being in the relative poverty, compared to Bill Gates, that I'm in, it's not for me to become the next Bill Gates, because then I, will obviously, by achieving that position, will have committed the same injustice that our system is built on. So that, what we should not be aspiring to is to be rich. That's probably what the fallacy that a lot of like Trump followers have, is that they can somehow be like him, and not realizing that most of them know it will never be possible, and like he hates them. Like they think they can be him, and I think that's part of the delusion that allows him to be, as inconceivably popular as he is.
A quick thing to add here. I just Googled justice, and the definition that I got was just behavior or treatment. So that might help us.
If I might offer an observation about that quote, it's one of my favorites in the movie. And when I hear that, Evan, I'm Mickey. Yeah, when I hear that, I always think about justice being equitable. And true justice means making the world equitable and not allowing for such generational poverty to exist, that there should be a righteousness or a trueness or truth telling about we are equitable and we're not comfortable with poverty. We are instead looking for justice or a more equitable life for everyone.
So at this, with that statement, right, at this point in time, I don't agree with that statement, right? Because the wealth gap is so large, right? And our political and justice systems are set up such that money moves mountains, right? So I dropped 2 books in the chat, which is about to, which will further inform what I'm about to say. So, so when we talk about wealth and what that can bring, it ultimately offers protection against whatever may come, right? So if you can wrong me and I have the ability to sue you, right? And then you are financially liable for that, right? Whether it be, okay, you have a company, you steal my wages, all right? If I'm just working this job because I like it, right? And my family has money, right? You don't pay me my money, well, I can get you for that and more, right? So it behooves you as the employer to go ahead and do right. Same with just personal reaction. So, I mean, personal interaction. So For some reason, somebody wants to be racist in public on the street, and because of it, you get injured, right? You don't have to fight. You just take it to court, right? You can have the courts handle it from there. But the problem is you need money for that to happen. If you don't have that money, you can't, basically, the system is set up for pay to play, right? So going all the way back, so back in Reagan, not Reagan, what's the other one? Nixon, the Nixon administration, in the code of Black capitalism, he basically set up what you call financial education institutions, right? To teach Black people how to manage money, right? And how to get access to, well, basically just build wealth, right? So pull yourself up by your bootstraps, right? That was all in that vein, right? So they did this for about 5 years, and then they realized nothing had changed. The conditions of the ghettos were the same, right? So they went back to the people and they said, we gave you these institutions, we gave you these classes, we gave you financial education. Why haven't you improved, right? And the number one thing that came back is like the people said, I know the right things to do. I just don't have the money to take advantage of it, right? So wealth breeds wealth, right? So like so for example, when people talk to me about investing, right? First thing I ask them is like, do you know how much a micro investment is, right? And they say no. I said a micro investment is super micro investment is $10,000. Do you have $10,000 to just lose? Lose, right? It's not going to affect your life or make some bills hard to pay or make you lose some weight unintentionally. Do you have that money to just throw away? And if you don't, well, you don't have enough money to start playing in that game for real, right? Because the stock market is what, 8% return over a year, 8% of return of $500, right, is only $40. That doesn't help you pay bills. That doesn't help your life within 1 year span, right? So at this point, specifically for Black people, closing the wealth gap, and to Paul's point about Chase just throwing money at an issue, no, that's always the wrong idea. But what they should do is throw money to implement infrastructure such that Black people aren't a contagion to wealth anymore, but they're able to build wealth, right? Because they've been here. Black people who've been here since forever. They are uniquely American, and we still don't have wealth on par with the other people who are here at the same time, right after slavery.
Great points. How do we pronounce your first name so that I can say that?
Alcidnio. I go by
Alcidnio.
Yeah.
You go by what?
Al.
Okay.
Yeah.
Al, you made some really great points, and I am going to step back. I do just want to say this one thing, is that I saw a study at one point that was saying for historically oppressed communities, even when one of us gets to a position where we have a great paying job, or we're out of that financial, and maybe we have $10,000 to spend, right, that we could get rid of, our families are not, right? And I'm not gonna let grandma's bills not get paid. I'm not gonna let cousins' bills not get paid. If the funeral, all right, well, I gotta pay for that funeral, because if I don't pay for the funeral, then the funeral don't get paid for. You know what I mean? And so, so when you talk about economic rebuilding, right, or economic building, as the case were, that has to be for the whole family, not just, you can't just pick off one person from each family.
Yeah, wealth building, I say this all the time, wealth building is a team sport, right? So like you think about, so while we're on that team sport thing, but to your point, right, you become government, right? Basically, right? You get the high paying job in your family, you become government, right? Everybody's coming to you because they think you have it. But unfortunately, wealth building is a team sport. And I put it like this. So I want to say 2 years ago now, there was an HBCU, I can't remember the name. They were trying to get accreditation, right? Well, they were trying to stay financially solvent. right? And so like they went on this big campaign to get money. They finally got the money, and the board said, no, we're not going to give it to you. Why? Because they were just like, we don't know if you will become insolvent again in the coming years, right? And that's a fair statement, right? But the issue, and to highlight how wealth is a team sport, they had to go on a national campaign to get, I think it was $5 million. $5 million. Bloomberg on his Lonesome gave St. John's, what was it? Like, no, it was like 100 million. Just here. Here it is. And that's one person. That's one person giving donations to one school, right? Now, like Bloomberg is an aberration, right? He's an extreme of that example. But imagine how many families, white wealth, is going to that school, who has went to that school, who are able to donate $12,000, $20,000 on a yearly basis. And that adds up, right? But this one HBCU, with all the Black people that it has served, had an issue getting $5 million. And this is how wealth is a team sport. How many phone calls do you have to make to get your GoFundMe off the ground? that highlights where your wealth positionality.
Al, we're gonna have to talk offline, man. You dropping some jewels, man. I feel it's gonna be needed in multiple spaces. So thank you for real. Any other comments kind of towards that topic before I go ahead and
Can you share the quote with us one more time, Evan, so we can get back to the thread?
The opposite of poverty is not wealth. The opposite of poverty is justice. Just add me to the group. I got you, family.
Thank you.
All right, so this is another scene. You're gonna have to bear with me while I share it because it's from a one that we just seen, and then also so we played the execution scene, but what we couldn't get in that clip was it was that same thing while he was walking towards the electric chair where they were banging their their cups and things, making crazy amounts of noise, and they were yelling for him, and y'all hear the same person, Ice Cube's son, that's the only person I really know him as, Ice Cube's son. Y'all see him like, we with you, brother, but you also heard him in the first, if you've seen the movie, in the first time he yells out, we with you, Herb! And so one of the why I compare and contrast those two things is just because I always dive into like the psychology of movies and the psychology of different events. And in the first scene, he was walking towards death, right? And everyone in there is on that same trajectory. And they're yelling and they're cheering and they're showing their support for him. But then when Jamie Foxx is getting out, you hear that it's not as loud in that scene. And when he says, we're with you, he doesn't say it, in such an aggressive tone. Given they were face to face, but he doesn't say it as supportive as maybe he would have said it when Herb was getting strapped into the chair. And so when I saw that scene, when I finished the movie and I saw that, I was just like, dang, it's crazy, because it seemed like they were yelling louder. And it's like, that's what we're doing now. It seems like we're yelling louder now when Black lives are being lost than we would when, when we're alive, or when we get the choice to keep living. And so I guess my question, and it's my second to last question, why does it seem that Black lives only matter when we're killed?
How far you want to go back? Wait.
Holla at me, man. You be dropping that out. Go ahead, man. Holla at me, man.
I'm gonna let somebody else talk because I can ramble So yeah. Any.
Yeah. Somebody else tackle that. Why do Black Lives matter when we being killed and not while we're living?
Can I offer a rephrasing? And let me know if this rephrasing is not your question. Okay. How can we show our support of Black lives before they end? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because it's hard to ask why, right? Because it's racism. Like, that's why. Right? But how can we support Black lives as they're being lived?
Going off of Evan's question about the why, it almost seems like it's about momentum at the time. Like, who has the momentum in the spotlight? And I guess you could really go back to like, okay, but who puts the momentum in the spotlight on what issues? How do we decide that? But it's the point that like, it seems almost that the issues that are at hand at the time gets the most support. So even though like killing Black people has gone on for years, but it's what's being shown more now than ever. So it's like we have that one causative event, which I believe is like the George Floyd thing, and that it sparked like protests, it sparked movements, it sparked like more discussion and debate about everything else, about police brutality, about funding. It sparked debate about education. Like, we're going deeper than ever before. But it's like, before, I kind of mentioned this last time we were talking, but it's like last time it was with the kids in the detention center, like missed fair treatment and stuff like that. But it didn't go in depth. But it almost seems like it has to take a tragic event for people to be like awoken, to be like, okay, this is an issue. Because for so long, like, without the media coverage, most people just don't go about their day like, okay, let me see like what's going on, like, let me see how like the issues that I can help, because at the end of the day, there's so many issues, and so I feel like we take it as, okay, what's going on right now so I can stay in the loop. And that's quite unfortunate, I think, because it's like, I feel like a lot of people would not have come out and done this. Like, it's almost like, before all of this happened, where was everyone? Like, I feel like we've been fighting for our rights forever. Like, I'm tired already, okay? But I mean, I appreciate it. It's nice that it's getting the momentum, but it's the fact that it takes a tragic event to get this momentum, or it takes certain media coverage to get this momentum, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. I'm gonna just say that.
I'm also a history teacher, and I have a degree in history. And so one of the things I've noticed, and they've, some of the things come out and say that basically since the creation of the television and radio, when they started seeing the civil rights movement in the 50s and 60s, and seeing the hosing of people and seeing the treatment, white people realized it was happening. Living the difference between the North and the South, and the hangings that were constantly happening, and the Jim Crow laws and stuff. Well, living in the North, we didn't see that. We heard about it, but not that much. There wasn't that much. But I think because we've become global, and as things continue to happen, but unfortunately, and I made a post on Facebook the other day about this, and it's like, we watch this stuff, and I'm speaking mainly for me, not all white people, but you watch this stuff, you get really, really angry, you go, this is really awful, but we can go back into our white lives and go, okay, now I'm going to go on with my life and it's not going to affect me. And then it happens again and we get angry again, because we don't have to live it the way you guys do. And it's a terrible, hateful, awful thing. But I think some of us are waking up to this. I mean, you hear this over and over and over again, that I cannot imagine what it's like to walk out the door in brown skin. I don't know that I would have the strength and stamina to be you. When I was at Echo Glen, I remember one of my students got his driver's, said when he was getting out, was going to get his driver's license. First thing I said to them is, I said, and have you had that conversation with your parents? This was, you know, a few years ago when the cops were pulling everybody over and just killing them. And he says, yeah, I have. And I looked at him and I said, you know what? I have sons and I've never had to have that conversation with them. And I, you know, yeah, because we can retreat back into ourselves and just go about our lives and it doesn't affect us. And I hate to say that, but that's the truth.
If I can add to that, I'm also thinking a lot about an article that was recently published by Charles Blow for the New York Times, essentially talking directly to white allies and white accomplices, and saying, please don't disappoint us again, and calling back to civil rights movements. The idea of the same white allies that marched with MLK in the South were actually protesting him years later as he spoke about equitable housing in the North. And Charles Blow made this great point that it feels like a lot of times white people join in these movements not because we truly value equity and because we've done that internal examination, but because of embarrassment or shame. It's public, out in a way, and so I think it's easier for white people to get up and just say, oh, that's the problem. We're just going to fix that one little thing and then pat ourselves on the back. Great, we fixed racism, instead of owning the fact that we're actually part of the white supremacist structure. And it's something that we need to commit to undoing every single day.
I kind of want to piggyback on that and also say that when I look at the systemic oppression that is put upon one group, it is by another group who is getting economic advancements, economic wealth and growth. And you look and you made a comment of saying that that same white person that marched with MLK, in one instance, when we was talking about equitable housing, was then not for him. And you look at how our country was built, and it was built on the backs of trying to grow white folks trying to grow their economy, try to grow their wealth, but on the backs of oppressing others. And I think, and if we don't look at all the areas that is hurting people of color, you look at what happened with redlining, with the housing market. We look at what's happening, and basically they're talking about defunding police, but our schools and our neighborhoods were defunded long before. I think it's not hard to kind of look at how, when that question of who can still be on top and who can still have that economic wealth and growth at the highest levels, it is releasing that hold. It is releasing that and sharing that. And I think that kind of says a little bit of why maybe one group at 1 minute will march for MLK when there is a sense of being ashamed, when there is a sense of seeing something that is horrific. But then when it really comes down to affecting, is my job going to be affected? Is my wealth going to be affected? We have to push past that and realize equality and justice is about looking at all the avenues of where systemic racism is at and pushing it out, regardless of what it will look like for those that have been on top for so long.
Thank you for that. I think that brings me back to my point of just like working where you are. So we know somebody here is in education, right? And sounds like you're doing some of that work. If you're in finance, then what does it look like to end racism in finance? If you're in whatever, what does it look like to end racism there, you know? Michaela made a great point, like, we're tired. And I put in the chat, like, you're a youngin', like, Michaela, you're under 30, right? And there are elders who are 60, 70 years old, and they're like, I've been fighting. It's time for you guys to pick this up, you know? And another point of that for me is, I think I said this earlier to Mary, is that people not only listen to you in ways that they don't listen to us, but they also speak around y'all in ways that they won't speak around us, right? And in those moments when they're making the racist jokes, or when they're, saying, oh, that kid, well, he's going to prison. Well, is he? If so, why? How do you know that? What do you know? Like, he's actually a great kid if you pour some love into him. So yes, I completely agree, Krisha, and please correct me if I'm saying your name wrong. But it starts at home, and it starts where we are. And, we're doing, thank you. We just need to make sure that, and when I say we, I'm going to put that on the white accomplices, because us as Black and brown people have enough to fight. We have enough to fight.
To answer, I guess, both questions, the framing of both questions. So why does Black lives only seem to matter when it's Black death? The short answer is America has this kind of fetish with the harming of Black bodies, right? So one of these things is illustrated in a book called They Were Her Property. So it's talking about how white women also were on equal par to white men when you talk about the institution of slavery. They owned slaves, they went to court for slaves, they killed people for their slaves, they were there with it. But there are multiple sections in there where it talks about how they would inflict harm on these slaves, right? So they would do things to not damage the product, but to inflict as much harm as possible. In another book called The Delectable Negro, they talk about what they did to Nat Turner. So it wasn't necessarily they just killed him for being a rebel, right? And they made it real public. No, they made a lampshade out of his skin, right? And this thing is still out there being passed down, right? And they know what it is, right? But these are trophies. Even when you look at the lynchings, there was always some type of genetic mutilation. All right, you go back and look at these pictures, there's usually a towel or the man, specifically for men, their genital areas are all bloody, right? You look at for women, if their breasts were cut off, or if they were pregnant, they had the baby ripped out of them, right? It was something about it, right, that said, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to take joy in doing this, and it's going to be real public. Right. So fast forward to now, right? So people are more PC, but the fetish is still there. The visceral response is still there. It just presents itself in a different way. So now on to the next question. How do we make Black lives matter while people are alive, right? So first I want to hop on to Michaela's question is like, people were doing the work, right? Unfortunately, the work is quiet. Unfortunately, people don't have resources to make strides in bigger sections, right? So like people were doing the work, they were just less organized, mostly because they have less resources, and we're getting back to the wealth question. But coming back, how do we make Black lives matter while people are alive? You have to think about it in terms of Black families. So how can we support Black families where they are, right? So if I have two boys, so I'm an advocate in the education space, right? So I've gotten into a couple spats with people at my son's school, not only because he's a gifted Black boy, but because they say things about them, and I'm just like, well, that's not true. And then we have to go back and forth from there. So you have to pick your advocacy space, right? And know, right, and be mentally prepared for the work that is to come, right? Because the oppression and the disadvantage is so systemic, right? You have to understand people are battling things on multiple fronts, right? We're battling food insecurities at the same time. Well, we're battling food deserts, so we're not getting proper nutrition. On top of that, we're battling not having enough money to really buy the proper food. On top of that, well, I'm working 2 jobs and I haven't got real sleep in a long time. I haven't had a vacation. I haven't had time to relax. So you're battling like mental issues, right? When you don't get a time to relax and decompress, right? You start to go crazy or start crazy. So you have to understand that people are battling things on multiple fronts, and that also impedes the work, right? But this basically has to become a labor of love, right? You have to understand that, like, helping Black people is not popular. It's going to come with issues. There's not a lot of money in it. and it's going to take time. And there are going to be days where you just want to be like, well, they don't care, so I don't care. But pick your advocacy space and like understand, like, these are people that we're working, we as Black people are people that are like working through multiple traumas, multiple oppressions at one time and trying to either come out on top, but at the least keep our head above water.
$100. And I mean, one thing just to add to that is, people who help Black people end up dead. Just keep it all the way a buck. This is a dangerous game. And I do a podcast every other day, and one of the things that we talked about one time was, how far are we willing to go for this? How far are our allies willing to go for this? Because we know how far white supremacy is willing to ride for itself. How far are we willing to ride on the other end? And I think we won't know until bullets start flying. I think that's the way it was with the Civil War. I think people were just like, I don't know if I'm with the South or the North, and then bang bang, and it's like, all right, choose up or lose up. And then that whole deal was what it was. So like I don't think we'll really know until we hit that extreme. And I think we're gonna be there. We need to be somewhat prepared for that. But I only have one more question. I don't know if anybody else has another question. I have one more question for the evening, and it is.
Quick question before you ask your question. What is the name of your podcast? You halfway plugged it. You can't be like, oh, I do this podcast and then not tell us.
It's called the Evan and Drew Morning Show, More Life, and our hashtag is Free to Thinkers, because we're just trying to help people think out here. But
thank you.
I'll drop a link, I guess. But the question is, should this curriculum, this topic, this movie, is this something that our kids should watch? Is this something that we should add to curriculum in school? And I ask because, one, To Kill a Mockingbird is curriculum in school, so it's a book that they read. But should Just Mercy, should this be something, a book and a movie that should be added to that? And why I ask is because I made my nephew watch this, and he's 8. And it was a super, super powerful moment for myself, being an uncle, a mentor, an educator, and everything, just a Black man, seeing a younger generation watch some of the things that I've already been made aware of and grew up watching, even from his age. So just watching this happen again just kind of taught me a lot. And we had a long talk about racism kind of before I showed him the movie. And then we were watching it, and we got to that electrocution scene, and I just, looking over, and I'm watching him just cry. I mean, he's bawling, and then I just go over there and I hug him, and we're crying together. And we're just watching this, and he's just like, man, I can't stop seeing that. I can't stop seeing that or thinking about it. And then so I was like, damn, that's crazy. And so I had him do a writing assignment like I make most kids or my nephews do. I was like, well, we're gonna write about it. His handwriting ain't the best. So, but between the chicken scratch, what I read was, he said, yeah, but what he said was powerful. He said, I don't think kids should watch that. He said, I don't think kids should see this. I got to go get it. I'm not even gonna say nothing else. Discuss that question. I'm gonna go grab his little writing assignment. But should kids watch this?
I guess I'm gonna repeat what I said in the chat. It should be watched within a given context, right? Because seeing that, right, not just on a racial level, just on a person-to-person level, the movie is traumatic. Like, how can you do this to a person, right? And then once you add race on top of it, it can be very heavy for the youth, right? Not that they shouldn't see it at all, but you have to contextualize, right? It's just like, look, these are things that happen, right? We're not specifically in that place anymore, but these things still do occur, right? And there has to be a larger lesson there, such that like people aren't traumatized at a young age.
I agree with you there, Al. I can just speak to my personal parenting choices, and I've wrestled with this, not with this particular movie, but with things like this in general, right? There's too many movies about the bad things that happen to our communities. So I have a 9-year-old. I've chosen not. I have not and will not let him see this film until he's older. I think that as a young Black boy who is too soon going to be seen as a man, I really want to protect his childhood as much as I can. And of course, I've had to have the talk with him, and I've had to, tell him different strategies of being safe. But for my personal parenting, I don't feel right adding something else on, because it's already sad that he hasn't had much of a childhood just because of the skin he was born in.
Bridging off of what you said, Angel, I grew up in a household where my dad was very pro-Black. Like, everything about it was him. And like, our punishment would be like waking up in the middle of the night to read biographies on Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. To this day, I still know facts, that like random facts. And I think it put a lot of hate in my heart, like at a young age. I appreciate him. I understand where he came from. Like, and I'm going to tell my daughter, because, she's confused why her white classmates keep calling her racist, because she says that Christopher Columbus did not discover America, And so it made me aware of the issues, but at the same time, like, counteracting it also put a lot of hate in my heart. It made me like forget all white people, like they don't have, they don't care about me. And that's a hard thing to go through at a young age. Which is now to this day where I'm like, man, I'm tired, because that started so early in my life. But when it comes to talking about like who should be the film, I think for me, I kind of think about this as like, well, who's the audience for? And my sister, she's turning 10, and I was like, should I have her watch this movie with me? Just like dwelling on that question. And I'm like, well, I decided not to personally, but when I think about like who should, I'm like, okay, well, I feel like white people, for one, like the audience is very much, this movie is very much targeted towards white people. And if I'm getting really into it, it's targeted towards white people and their comfortability, if I'm putting it really out there. Like, I feel like when you view this film and you view like, what is it? This Is Us? Or the really like hardcore film. I think it very much like, hey, this is an issue, but I'm going to make it like as comfortable as possible for white people. I feel like this is how that film kind of like portrayed it a little bit. Like, that's my own personal opinion. But I think white people, and I think like uneducated people, like people who may not know that things like this are going on. So I think that would be like the core target audience. But yeah, I actually wanted to, I know I'm kind of jumping everywhere right now. I wanted to go back to what you said before I forget. You were talking about it's kind of like choose up or lose up at that point. And for me, it kind of like, it makes me a little scared because I feel like our community is just so divided, like so much to the point where it's like, all right, we got light skins, we got dark skins, and we got Africans, like instead of one people, you know, one big marginalized community. But it's like we're so divided, and the laws against us where it's like you can't have a weapon if you were in jail or something like that. I'm not being like too specific about it, but it's like they put these things in place where it's like, if it comes to that point where it's like bullets start flying and we gotta, you know, kind of like huddle together, it's like, what resources will we have? Like, how will we have prepared ourselves? Because at this point, we're kind of like undivided and we don't have the resources to do so. So it makes me fearful, but also like, how do we prepare ourselves with lack of resources?
Yeah.
That's a great question. And some great.
So I just want. Oh,
no, go ahead, Tiffany. Please offer your voice.
I wanted to say before you read that no, I agree with the no, especially. I don't know whether I heard this or I just thought it when you were asking the question, but I thought it was related to whether or not to share it with children in school. And I'm in Portland, and children in school are in schools where there might be 1, 2, 3 Black kids in that class. And that is not the place. I think in community, I think in particular for you with your son, yes, this is the place where we maybe as community or as family members can decide what to share and when. But this is not something that we should turn over to whoever is teaching whatever classroom to present.
Great feedback. Go ahead. If somebody else is gonna go. I was gonna.
Well, I was just going to chime in as a
what Michaela was saying.
Oh, I'm sorry. In just that there is so much that's not being taught in the schools. I mean, like you said, To Kill a Mockingbird. I am so tired of that and a lot. I mean, yeah. So for example, a friend of mine on Facebook 2 years ago, maybe 3, taught me about Tulsa. I had no idea. I never learned about it. As a history major, I took African American history at Seattle Central. Never mentioned it once. Never heard a thing.
And so, sorry to interrupt, Mary, but just for the good of the order, Tulsa is also known as Black Wall Street. Black Wall Street was a thriving Black community. We had suburbs and a whole economic base that was building. And in, I think it was 3 days, 2 or 3 days, the whole city was burned down and all of the people that lived there had to relocate. So I just wanted to put that out there so that we know what we're referencing.
So I'm just saying, when we teach, I think we need to relook at the education system and realize that when we're teaching anything, whether it's English and what textbooks we're reading, whether it's social studies, whether it's science, whether it's math, whatever we're teaching at whatever level, is we have to take it away from the white male perspective and start teaching about, if we're doing American history, it's all of American history. And yes, some of it's really ugly. And yes, some of the kids in the classroom are going to have issues. And that's good because they have to learn not to have those issues. I used to be a Spanish teacher, and I had kids the day after the election chanting to the Hispanics in my classroom, build that wall. And I just, had to shut that down. So it's out there. And we as educators have to walk a fine line without pushing them away, but teaching them that that's not acceptable. And if we're afraid of showing films like this, and I actually showed Black Klansmen in my 8th grade classroom, they picked it because we were having issues where people were calling each other the N-word. And I said, okay, let's watch this. Again, it's perspective. But if we don't start educating our youth, then we're going to stay exactly where we are today. That's how systematic racism starts. That's how it continues. That's how this white supremacy will permeate if it isn't shot down and we aren't taught that this can't happen. Look at the history and the contributions of this country. And I think what we need to do is raise up Black and brown lives in everything we do educationally. So you guys are not the other. You are part of the American fabric and you're naturally part of the education system. And that's not happening.
Yeah. I wanted to give Lynn a chance to speak. It looks like you were trying to say something, Lynn. And as you're getting unmuted, let me just plug that Lynn is an integral member, the head of the Federal Way Black Collective, who is sponsoring our discussion tonight. So.
Hi guys, I am so sorry. So I am simultaneously in a city council meeting accepting the proclamation for Juneteenth in partnership with Urban League. Whoop, whoop. City of Federal Way has never acknowledged. So super excited. So I apologize. I'm a little bit stuck out, but I wanted to piggyback off what Michaela said. So policy is my love. It is my heart. It is where I thrive. It is sexy to me, and I get it. It's not sexy to most people, but that is where we get those changes, Michaela. And I feel almost like I'm going to cheapen this event with the raffle because the questions I had, I wasn't sure how deep you guys wanted to get. And so I just feel bad because I feel like I've been listening like simultaneously to how deep this has gotten. And I just really appreciate you guys for taking the time to share your hearts, be honest. And these are difficult conversations to have. So, and it is not your job to do that emotional labor. So we appreciate you for that. But I guess a way we can try to compensate you for that would be to raffle off some money. So we have a couple of things we're working on. Our first raffle item I will do is a $100 Netflix gift card. So first disclaimer, all of this, if you win, before I start, I will need you to email fwblackcollective@gmail.com. And I will drop that in the chat, or Angel, if you could do that for me. And please tell me your shirt size, your home address, if you are receiving a physical gift, or just your email information. If it is, then I can do an electronic gift. So first disclaimer. So the first one will be a Netflix gift card. Can someone tell us where this movie was based? Because this was a true story, so I don't want to say filmed.
Do you want city?
$150 on the line.
Now you unmuted. You go ahead and say it, Al. Oh, Tiffany was the first.
Oh, Tiffany got it. Alabama. Okay, Tiffany, can you please send an email with your shirt size? Or actually, no, I'm going to do all large size shirts just to make it a little easier so I can get it to you as fast as possible. But with your email address to fwblackcollective@gmail.com. Thank you so much. Let me see. My assistant just emailed me these questions. So the next question is how long was the cellmate incarcerated? And we'll say this is for a $50 self-care box from Positive Vibes, located in the Commons Mall.
How long was who incarcerated?
The cellmate.
Well, they didn't have cellmates. I wonder who she's referring there.
You talking about Ice Cube Jr. or
Yeah, that sounds right. Okay, yeah, that's not fair if I don't know the answer. She wrote that question. So She said still a cellmate. So let's go to a different one. Do you guys know who Billy Ramsey is?
No, ma'am.
So there was a person that was intimidated regarding their statement, and they had an initial statement and they were scared into giving a second one. Why didn't he tell his original statement? Damn, I just answered it.
Because he was being blackmailed. I'm just
right. I was like, I just can't say it. Okay, thank you, Michaela. Can you email me your information?
Yep.
I am so sorry, guys.
Well, also,
very
he just
deleted
didn't want to lie, right?
Right? I mean, you know.
He was just like, nah, I don't know nothing about that.
Mm-hmm.
Lie about it.
It's true. Fair point.
And
fair
they
point.
really put him through it to get that statement. You know, they put him on death row, put him next to the chamber where he would, you know, where he was afraid of fire. Like,
And the fact that he was mentally disabled on top of it, like it wasn't just any white person, it was a mentally disabled white person and poor and through foster care. So they even do it to their own people.
That's the funny thing about racism is there's no way it could only affect Black people, and still people perpetuate it. But so maybe this is easier. Where did Michael B. Jordan's character graduate from?
Harvard, wasn't it?
Okay, sorry, I flipped out of the chat. So who said that?
Al.
Okay, thank you. Al. You know what? Al is about to be integral in the Black Collective. So I have your number. Can you text me your email address? How do you have that? Text me your email address, please. Oh wait, did Mary Davis beat you? Because she put it in the chat. Angel, did you catch that?
I don't know what.
Sorry, I didn't catch it, Mary. I don't know who said
I think it was a tie. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Okay. So
I'm here more for the conversation than the raffle.
Okay.
She said Harvard's. I don't know
spot?
what that is. I don't know. I don't know.
I'm gonna honor that because you know I need a little Zoom grace too. So what I'm gonna do is Mary Davis, I'm gonna give you a self-care box from Diva Spot. If you can please email us. Al, what we will do is, what was last? I think this was the last one, $100 cash gift card. Thank you guys so much. I'm back up next for public comment. So have a good night. Thank you.
Marlene.
Look at her just handling business, just being on top of it.
All stuff. But back to these kids. Back to these kids. I'm gonna answer it. So, I mean, I wasn't different on showing my nephew like the film, but my nephew, he's a different type of 8-year-old. Like he's you know, if he's not proper, like, I mean, he's really just like me, you know, big Black male that's very articulate and smart. And so he's a problem wherever he is. And so there's just certain things I feel like he has to learn sooner than others. And so that's why I kind of made the choice to like, no, you got to get this lesson now before you're in an environment where it's too late. And so after, but I think there was like 2 points I agree with. I want to say one was Tiffany's, where I don't know if I really want this in schools though. I don't really like To Kill a Mockingbird in schools. And one reason is I don't think it's on white people to teach Black history. But then also to Michaela's point, this should be shown to white people to kind of see certain things, like you know, to kind of see certain aspects of white supremacy that maybe they're unaware of. So I'll sit in the middle and be indifferent, I guess. But I do want to share with you guys what my nephew wrote. He said, I think it was harmful for kids. I did not like it. I don't want people to be on death row, knowing they're going to die. Black men and white men are never alike. I just hope Black people and white people someday can get along. I was like, damn. I stalled his hand right now because that was such a profound statement that that he made. And to me, that's the power of educating early, is you do get profound statements like that. You're never wrong. I don't think you're ever wrong either way. You're never wrong if you choose to wait to make the point, and you're never wrong if you choose to make it early. I just think that's on you. That discretion's on you as a parent. The educator, I guess, says that discretion is on the schools. But as a community member, I just think, like, from a Black man perspective, there's certain things young Black boys need to know early. And this movie was one of them.
When you were speaking, Evan, just now, it reminded me of a statement that I haven't processed fully, but came to me when you were speaking, as I said. But white supremacy also hurts white folks, because the man that killed that girl that he went to prison for was still out in the streets. He had murdered that young girl. He had, who knows what else he'd done, right? And he's just out on the streets because of racism. Mm-hmm. Right? And the statistics are, if you get hurt, if you get murdered, it's probably by somebody that has the same, that identifies as the same race as you, right? So for all of these people who are going to prison, that later we find out that they did not commit that crime, that means that there are people who did commit that crime who are still out there committing crimes. So if the justice system worked, I mean, at this point, if we have the most people in prison in the world, if the justice system worked, it'd be working. We wouldn't have any crime, right? So white supremacy also hurts white people, and maybe that's the impetus. Maybe that's the, like, wow.
Well, I don't think white supremacy in itself is this institution that necessarily protects white people. I think white supremacy is more so an ideology of white male dominance and the control of power. If we look at white history and European history, white people have been throwing hands with white people forever. You know what I'm saying? So it's like they just want to make sure that, but one thing, and to their, genius, they know when it comes time to throw hands against other people, they come together and they work together. And so that's white supremacy in a nutshell. They still fighting each other. I mean, shit. I mean, Russia and the United States have been funking for a minute, but I guarantee if it came down to it, let an alien pop up on Earth, you'll see Russia and the United States, pointing guns at the same alien. And then they'll get back
pointing guns at an alien. Come on, I don't know you.
And to your point, the aliens could be like, hey, let me fix all of your problems. I have all this technology. And they'll be like, no, war. So
Earth is a space ghetto. They ain't coming here.
That's a space hood.
But yeah, I would recontextualize what you said about white supremacy as not just white male, but is really housed in white families. Because when we think about if we go back to the end of the 18th century, early 19th century, there was a branch of, I forgot, was it philosophy or science, whatever it was, ethnology, right? And they talked about patriarchy being the system, and then like gender wasn't housed in bodies, but more so housed on how basically were you civilized or not, right? So in that context, right? So white males were male, white women were also male, right? Black men were female, and black women were female because they were the uncivilized few, right? That actually, and it's a whole lot of if you start peeling back stuff, there's a whole lot of racist undertones in the ethnology that it helps describe what that is. So when we talk about patriarchy, my best example is this. So we talk about how, and this is why I say white families. So we talk about how white men run the corporate boards, right? White women got the nonprofit game on lock. it's a system that mirrors each other, right? But and we tend to think about, oh, the money, the patriarchy, but the roles are set within patriarchy itself.
Now you about to have us here all night. Once you start talking about patriarchy.
Hey man, I can backflip through that information too. What you gotta do? No,
I know you about to have us here all night.
I gotta finish work. So, but it's talking to y'all. I can't wait to talk to y'all again.
Hey man, I can't wait to meet you.
Looking forward to it, Al.
Bye-bye.
My man just gonna drop some shit and I'll log off. That's crazy.
Right.
Like, who does that?
I just want to say out loud for those of us who can't see the chat, what Al dropped on us before he did, as he was dropping the mic. Bell Hooks calls it imperialist, white supremacist, capitalist patriarchy. So she puts it all in that one term. Like, this is all the stuff we got to fix. So I just wanted to put that out there for us.
Patriarchy. That's a whole lot of smoke.
And so we're here for 2 more minutes. So how about we go through and give our closing thoughts, huh? Does that sound okay, Evan? I don't want to take over.
Feel free.
And we'll do it popcorn style.
What do you guys mean by like closing thoughts? Like, what do you want us to say?
Last thing you want to say, last points, anything final about the movie, anything final about the discussions that we've been able to have, just closing thoughts.
I think I'd just like to thank everyone that showed up, you know, especially our white allies. Like it's always nice that they're not like afraid to come to the table. I know this could be like kind of scary, kind of intimidating sometimes. And maybe it is out of guilt, maybe it is out of shame, whatever reason it is, you're here. And the fact that like we're able to have this discussion calmly and like break those stereotypes of like, oh no, it's gonna get heated, you know. I think I can appreciate that. It kind of gives me hope, like as a young person, okay, maybe there is some like hope still, you know, maybe we can come together from all walks of life and have these hard discussions, you know, sit at the table, may not agree on everything, but like having the ability to just like come in with open arms, open ears, you know, and listen to everyone from different perspectives. So I think that's all I wanted to say is just thank you. I appreciate it. Oh, and it was also like very healing for a Black person to like say how we feel, but also like to hear it from another perspective. So
I just want to say thanks for holding this. I mean, I found this from a link from YouTube and I would love, or on Facebook, and I would love to keep participating in these kind of things. I don't know how to connect with you and keep this going, or if you do this weekly or monthly, but I do not want this to be a one-shot deal. So yeah, thank you for this and thanks for being, okay, I got it. Thank you.
I want to echo the thanks, and I came here to listen and learn, and I sure got the opportunity to do that. I'm very grateful. I want to add that two of my friend groups separately in different chats, this week they suddenly interrupted our normal chats of, hey, what's the newest thing you've watched on Netflix and Hulu, to suddenly start asking about, hey, let's talk about police brutality. Let's talk about Black Lives Matter. You know, just two social groups that I am with that were, you know, have not engaged in any political discussion until now, and they're suddenly starting to talk about it. And I hope it's just a harbinger of positive change for us and for this country.
I also want to echo thanks, and I'm still digesting Al's great commentary and just about white families perpetuating racism, and I'm thinking more about how outside of school we can encourage white families to actually have this discussion with their kids. I'll be thinking about that.
I also want to echo everybody's thanks for letting the white allies or accomplices into the discussion and to learn. I can't stop thinking about the question of how do we make Black Lives Matter when it's not just about killing Black people. That's all I'm thinking about right now. And I don't have an answer, but that's where we start, right? I mean, other than support Black businesses and demand diversity in my management at my work and support businesses that have diverse boards and like all of that. But not just that, like how often do I personally seek out Black artists and tattoo artists, and how do I make outdoor spaces open to Black communities and people of color and all of that. Anyway, thank you.
I'm a big old crybaby over here, so y'all gotta speak up, okay? I'm thankful that we had this chance. Just one moment, sorry. I'm thankful that we had this chance to get together and speak, and I'm so glad that and I hope that this leaks out into the rest of our lives, right? The things that we've learned here, and there have been so many things shared, so many resources, I should say, shared in the chat. And hearing Michaela, hearing you say that you have hope like that, that got my tears to going, because that's how you should feel at, how old are you, 19, 20, you know, like that's how you should feel. And that's not how I felt at 19 or 20. So I'm so glad that that's where you are. And I hope that in the coming weeks and the coming months that you have more hope poured into you, and that there are more opportunities for white accomplices. And let me just real quick say, the reason I use the term accomplice is because an ally can sit and just be kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm an ally. Nah, I'm on that side. But an accomplice is driving the getaway. I mean, you know, I hate to use those terms, but you know what I mean? An accomplice is like helping you out. An accomplice is like, nah, I'm gonna give you this job application that's about to go public tomorrow. I'm about to give you this, you know, this resource. I'm about to give you this grant, you know, or help you as much as I can. So that's the difference in the terms. And I'm so thankful. I just want to echo that thanks and encourage us, like I said, to bring this into our daily lives and really explore what that looks like.
And I'm gonna echo Angel with those thank yous, not with the tears though, because I ain't mad. You know, like that. But I do want to thank everybody for coming on. I mean, it's been like a amazing experience. You know, I didn't really know my involvement in this whole ordeal, but I'm a natural host of things. So they're just like, oh, Evan, you want to host this? And I'm like, I guess I don't have a choice. But I do want to say that, Michaela, I am extremely proud of you. I have known you for the last like 4 years now. And just watching you just climb mountains, and you are a leader. Remember when I met, I called you the next Angie, you the next Angela Davis. I said that. And you continue to prove that you're gonna be beyond her. So just keep climbing. everyone else, I just encourage you to continue to have these conversations in your homes and in your fields, with your closest friends and everybody. This is really the only thing to talk about right now. How do we restore equity amongst Earth? And that got to be the work of everybody. It can't just be the work of few. You know, I think when everyone does just a little bit, a lot is still accomplished. So if there's no one else, I just thank everybody again. Thank everybody who helped out in putting this on. And yeah, one love, all that good stuff. I wish I had an outro song for y'all. It'd probably be Bob Marley. One love, one heart. All right, somebody hit.
Feel all right.